Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 1253. I continue the month of March celebrating Women's History Month, talking with leaders in the automotive industry who are women. So here we go.
Life is an adventure. Enjoy it.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, automotive enthusiasts. I'm revved up and so excited to introduce today's very special guest calling in from beautiful California, Rhonda Madden. Hey, Rhonda, are you buckled up and ready for a fun ride?
Oh, I am.
All right. Rhonda Madden started her company, Creative Automotive Consultants, back in 1977. She's a trained appraiser and works for estates, individuals, and she's a licensed California DMV agent working as a vehicle verifier. After college, Rhonda moved to Los Angeles and worked as a fashion model, an actress, a dancer, and appeared in many movies and television shows. She often purchased collector cars, filling warehouses with her acquisitions, and she supplied vehicles to the entertainment industry to be used in movies and television, and she still provides vehicles to the visual arts industry today. Rhonda collects model cars and trucks, and on occasion, she collects a car or two as well. So, Rhonda, I've told our listeners just a little bit about your amazing and wonderful life. Please take a moment and share a little bit more about your career and your passion for automobiles before we jump into the questions.
Well, my passion for automobiles started as a child because my father loved them. And as a very young child, he used to bring me toy model cars and model cars that were given away by dealers to clients. So I started out with an appreciation for them, when I was probably about 6 or 7. So it never ended.
No, it hasn't ended. And your love and passion for cars just grows and grows. And I'll tell listeners, I met Rhonda through Facebook. We're Facebook friends, and I didn't know a lot about her. And I started kind of quizzing her on, who are you? Because every time she would post things, I'm like, this lady knows what she's talking about. Where did she come from? And then I learned more and more about your life and went, you know what? I've got to have you on the show here to celebrate Women's History Month and talk about your incredible life around cars. And that's what we're going to do as we continue on your journey. And I'd like to start by asking you for a success quote or a mantra. This is some kind of saying that's been instrumental in forming your life and your success. And it's a really nice way to get the inspirational tires spinning here on Cars Yeah. So, Rhonda, grab the wheel.
Life is an adventure. Enjoy it.
Perfect. Yeah, and you've done just that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
With your past, I mean, when I got your bio and I started reading, I went, oh my gosh, this lady has done a lot of different things. Now, a lot of it involved cars, but you were also in the entertainment industry, which is something you delved into for a while. Before we get back to cars, tell me a little bit. I was talking to a TV movie star here.
Oh, thank you. Well, I moved to Southern California, and I had modeled as a youngster, well, actually 18, 17, 18, 19, in San Francisco. So when I moved to Southern California, I started getting jobs, small jobs modeling, and I met my future father-in-law, who was a columnist for movies. And he introduced me to many, many people. And I started out as an extra, and then as a dancer, and then as a small bit player. I never got too involved with films. I did some commercials. But then I enjoyed it, but I started my success in it actually turned around, and I started providing cars for movies and films because I knew where they were. And my husband and I had collected so many cars, we bought a place just to store them. I've actually owned over 300 cars.
Oh my gosh. That's
so you
incredible.
can see how sick I am.
Well, you're just one of us. That's all that matters here. But I think that's pretty cool. You got into the industry and you met all these interesting people. And of course, one of the things that movies and TVs needs are props and definitely cars. So I find that really fascinating how you kind of combined your love of cars into a profession and something that you still do today. And one of the things I mentioned in your bio that I wanted you to clarify for me, you work for the California State DMV as a car verifier. Can you tell me a little bit more about what a car verifier is?
Well, actually, I'm a licensed registration agent, which means that I can title cars from museums, collections, estates, and so forth. I then became a verifier. Verifier, we verify the numbers on a car to other documents to see that it is a legitimate car, it isn't stolen, it isn't mucked about, to be crude. So I became licensed on both levels, and I still do it.
Very
Matter
cool.
of fact, I'm doing a 47 car collection starting tomorrow.
Oh my gosh. Oh, this is very interesting. Very cool. Very cool. Well, you gotten your hands into a lot of things, cars, and you talked about your dad buying you those little toy cars and bringing you models of cars and things when you're little. But is there a story you can share about when what really instigated that passion for cars, that pivotal moment in your life, and you knew you were indeed a car gal?
Well, I started working, my father took me to a wrecking yard. And when I met the owners of it, I realized they didn't speak English, or they couldn't read or write. They weren't educated. So I started working in wrecking yards. And at the time, there were some incredible cars. People didn't sell them, used cars. They dumped them in a wrecking yard. So I did work for the wrecking yard, doing all their D&V work back then. And I was able to do it in exchange for cars. And I got a lot of cars that way. And it was so much fun. And it was in a horrible area. But I know the grandson of the owner. He's in cars, and I met him recently, and we became friends. So, it's a small world after all.
This is really a fun story, because when you go back in time, you're exactly right. Back in those days, people would just use a car up and get rid of it. And they were never thought of becoming collector items or precious items or caretakers of cars. It was like a utilitarian tool. And you see these pictures of cars and junkyards going back to the 40s, 50s, even the 60s, and you think, how could an old Bugatti end up in a junkyard? But that's exactly right. So that's one of the ways that you acquired all these things.
Well, it was. And then after I was older, my husband and I were car nuts, and we kept buying them. So it started as almost a disease that I've enjoyed.
Yeah, that you've enjoyed. I like that. Now, there's a quote. Car collecting is a disease that I enjoy. I'm going to write that one down. I like that, Rhonda. Well, let's take a look at some of these. You're welcome. Let's take a look at some of these many incredible roads you've driven down and talk about a big challenge or maybe a failure that you faced along the way in your life. But more importantly, what was the learning lesson that came out of this situation? So kind of take us through that experience and tell us how it helped you gain even more momentum as you move forward in your life.
Well, I'd say the pivotal moment most likely was when I bought some junk cars or cars that shouldn't have been purchased, and I had to get rid of them. And it made me realize that I had to look at it from a more professional point of view rather than just, oh, that's a cool car, I'll park it in my yard. So
your neighbors loved you, I would imagine.
Oh, no, they did not.
Yes.
They thought a woman in the car business, oh, it was a plague. You don't do that.
Yeah, this lady's crazy. It's like the cat lady, but with cars.
Right. So I just turned around and got rid of them eventually and realized I had to fine tune it to the right kind of cars and get a facility to put them in. So that just made everything grow.
Well, that's when your hobby becomes a business, and when you realize that and you start to make those better decisions. Your story reminds me a little bit of a gentleman that lives up here or used to live up here. He's deceased now, but up in the Pacific Northwest, Harold LeMay, who actually there's a museum right down the road from where I live here, the LeMay America's Car Museum. And
I know it well.
Yeah, he and Nancy. I mean, I met that guy when we first moved up here 25 years ago, and he invited me to his home, and then he invited me to Marymount Park, where he had this little collection he called of 3,500 cars. I mean, that guy was incredible. So I think you're like a mini LeMay here, Rhonda, in your collecting and so forth.
Well, I met him, and he was a jewel.
He was a very special guy. And of course, we still have his wife, Nancy, and the family, and both the museums, the Family Museum and the LeMay Museum here. They're really special places to visit. But this is a really great part of Cars Yeah and the entrepreneurship here is when your hobby becomes your business, and realizing it is a business and you need to treat it as such is so important when it comes to the financial side. And boy, car collecting has its ups and downs. I've heard a lot of stories in this business, but I'm glad you you took the right path, it sounds like. Let's have a little bit of fun, though, and talk about your first. And I say first because somebody like you that have had so many cars, there are lots of special cars, but let's talk about the first really special car you acquired.
Well, it was after I'd had a few cars, and that was my 1937 Chrysler Airflow.
Ooh.
I drove it through San Francisco, and with mechanical brakes, that was a challenge.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about that car, because the reason it kind of sticks with me is I just did one of my Cars Yeah TV shows at the California Automobile Museum with Carrie Starr, who's been a guest here on the show. She's the curator. And one of the cars we talked about in the TV show is exactly that car. And I didn't know a lot about the car. Tell us a little more about the 37 Chrysler Airflow, because it's a very unique looking car.
Well, 37 was the last year for the Chrysler doing, or DeSoto doing the Airflow model. And it was a little bit more advanced and a little bit more, it was very Art Deco in design and concept. It was large, it was elegant, it was actually fun to drive, not fun to stop, but the lines on it were just wonderful. Airflow actually let the air flow over the car in such a way that when you drove it, you didn't hear the noise of the wind or the elements. So it was way ahead of its time.
Yeah, I would encourage listeners to Google Chrysler Airflow, because this car had a look about it from the front. It looked like a train, Art Deco train from the 40s, let's say, coming at you. Of course, it's a pretty big car. It's not giant, but it's a pretty good size, but very, very different, very, very unique. And as you said, a little bit challenging to drive, but again, it is an old car. And it had, if I remember right, didn't it have suicide doors that opened up?
Oh, absolutely. Sure did.
Yeah. Very, very, very cool car. Well, that, Rhonda, you're already high up on my notch ladder of people, but now that I know you had one of those, you just moved up a few more notches, because they're just stunning cars. Fantastic. Well, here's a very hard question for you. Seller's remorse. You've sold many, many cars over the years. Is there one in particular? Can you even pick out just one that you really wish you'd kept all this time?
Yes. My 1959 Alfa Romeo Giulietta Sprint, 750 Sprint. I raced it.
No. Oh, you were a racer too. Oh my gosh. Well, there you go. Another few notches up higher on the pedestal for me. That is very cool. What was it like racing that car?
I raced, and I had it was all vintage racing groups, CSRG, and raced at different tracks. I bought it in Connecticut and raced at Lime Rock, and then brought it back out here. And it motivated me enough to rent a shop at the old Sears Point Raceway, where I could put all my cars in the shop, all my memorabilia, gas pumps, and so forth. And driving it was wonderful, apexing corners, just the handling. And I just felt at home in it. So I miss it.
No doubt. What a beautiful, just awesome cars, beautifully designed cars. Alphas have a special place in my heart. In fact, who would have thought I'm sitting here doing this show wearing a sweater that, what does it say across the front? Alfa Romeo. There you go.
Oh, I love it. Well, it's I love French cars. Probably more than any, and then the Alfa Romeo always sings to my heart.
Yeah, I think so. Wow. Rhonda, the layers of the onion just keep getting peeled back on your life. I think we could do a show for hours and hours about the things that you've done, but we've got to move on a little bit. But I'd love for you to talk about what has you excited in your life right now. Creative Automotive Consultants. I mean, you're like the Energizer Bunny. You just don't slow down. You just keep going. What are some of the things, and you mentioned one earlier, that you're excited about this year in your life around cars?
Well, just going to the museums, working with the people that have started them, working with Peter Mullen from the Peterson Museum and his own sensational museum in Oxnard for French cars. And just the ability to meet the people and work with very high-end collections, private collections that are exciting, and to meet the people and to share their passion. That's what is exciting today.
I always say this, and my regular listeners know this, that it really comes down to this. It's not the cars, it's the people around the cars, the adventures, the history, the things that we do with cars that really make cars so special, but it is the people we run into. And Peter Mullen's been a guest here on the show. That museum he has in Oxnard, you listeners, if you've never been there, this is a must-do bucket list collection to go see because it is like walking into a jewelry store for cars. Absolutely spectacular. But what a fun life you've created for yourself, Rhonda, no doubt. Up next is the last lap. But before we put the pedal to the metal, let's say thank you to today's Cars Yeah sponsors who make this all possible. Everyone who knows me knows I'm really picky when it comes to my cars and keeping them looking new. I'm a huge fan of Covercraft floor mats. I've protected my vehicle with their products for decades. Want to keep your vehicle's interior looking new? It's easy with Covercraft floor mats. They will protect your vehicle's factory carpets from daily abuse, weather, pets, children, weekend adventures, and those everyday spills. It's a fast, easy, and stylish way to keep your vehicle looking new. Covercraft floor mats come in a wide variety of styles, materials, and configurations, all designed for maximum protection. In addition to Premier Plush and Berber custom floor mats, you'll also find cargo liners, canine cargo area liners, dash covers, and sunscreens. Enhance your vehicle's looks while protecting the factory finishes with easy-to-install and easy-to-clean floor mats. Covercraft is the right choice. Learn more today at covercraft.com and tell them Mark at Cars Yeah sent you. That's covercraft.com. Are you looking for a way to get your products or services into the ears of thousands of automotive enthusiasts around the globe? I can help. This is Mark Green here at Cars Yeah, and I'd be honored to be an influencer and ambassador for your brand in a unique and personal way. 5 days a week, thousands of subscribers and listeners enjoy the Cars Yeah podcast and website. Contact me today and I'll show you how at mark@carsyeah.com or connect with me through the Cars Yeah website at carsyeah.com. Hey, Mark Green here from the Cars Yeah podcast. Did you know you can now see me on the Cars Yeah TV show? That's right. Cars Yeah is now on MAV TV. I visit some of the past Cars Yeah guests and take you along for the ride. Go to mavtv.com to learn more where you can enjoy Cars Yeah TV. MAV TV is also available on DirecTV, Fubo TV, Fios by Verizon, or you can stream it through mavtv.com online. And they said I only had a face for podcasting. All right, Rhonda, we are back, and I have a very introspective question for you today. If Rhonda was a car, if you woke up tomorrow and you were manifested into a vehicle parked in the garage, what would Rhonda be and why?
A 1935 Delahaye 135M.
Oh my gosh. Now, that is a very special, unique car. How do you relate to that car?
Well, my father was half French.
Ah.
And he loved French designs, so that started there. That, to me, is one of the most exciting cars. I am in love with it. I feel a passion for it. So if I could have the one car in my garage that made me happy, of course, so many do, but it would be the Poloni Palaci Delahaye.
Yeah, special car.
And it can be seen at the Oxnard Museum. They have several.
Gosh. Yeah, several of them. They're just wonderful cars. Well, classic beauty style. That is you, Rhonda. So yeah, Rhonda is a Delahaye. I can see that absolutely. Sounds right. Maybe we should call that your Rhonda Delahaye Madden. There you go. I think that sounds like a great middle name for you. Well, we are coming up to what I call the last lap, and I'm going to fire off a series of questions and ask you to give our listeners some quick blips of that Delahaye throttle. So here we go. What's the best automotive advice you've ever received?
It was given to me by Bob Esbenson, who worked with many different people. He introduced me to Clive Cussler, and Clive Cussler said to me, "You love cars. It's unique. Follow your passion."
Yeah, absolutely. Now, as a person who's bought and sold, and I'm going to kind of add to this question a little bit here, so many vehicles, is there a piece of advice you might offer people who are into buying old collector cars that might help them along a little bit?
Absolutely. Have an appraiser or an expert or somebody that you know and respect. Check it out before you buy it. Make sure that it is what it advertised to be, and that the numbers match and that everything is correct on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have a couple of friends that ask me when they're looking at buying cars, their words are, talk me out of this car, because they know I'll bring some logic into the discussion, because they're already fulfilled with the red mist. They already have bought it in their mind before they've even checked it out, because that's what happens to us when it comes to cars. So take Rhonda's advice. Take a trusted expert along next time you're looking to buy an old car. Would you share one of your personal habits you believe has contributed to your many successes in life over all these years?
Just being determined, not listening to the advice that a woman doesn't belong in the car business, following my own dreams, and not listening to people who have their own judgments, but they are judgments that I don't respect.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because, of course, this month here on Cars Yeah, I've dedicated to 21 women. I've had over 100 women on the show before this month came along, but I really wanted to bring to the attention how many women there are in the automotive industry and how it's growing and how it's becoming more and more acceptable. Fortunately, a lot of the old mindsets of some men in this world are kind of fading away or going away. I think women add a very extra layer of flavor and flair and expertise and knowledge into the car industry. So I like that very much. Nicely said. How about a resource? Is there one that you'd like to share with our listeners that you found rather enjoyable?
Oh, there's so many.
Yes.
I would say the resources are, I spend a lot of time reading old magazines, old books, car books, and that's where I've learned so much. And I there's so many. And I would have to say that my concentration on car books and the cars that I enjoy and those that I don't, and how they became, even were creative, are of interest. So that's pretty much where it is.
Yeah, I'm sitting here looking at my shelves filled with car books, and I've always thought, I have so many now, and I've interviewed hundreds of authors of great books. In fact, I'm going to be interviewing one later today, a new book that just came out. But books are great. I know the internet is out there where people think they can find anything, but it's really nice to sit down with a book that's been well written, well researched, and full of all sorts of little tidbits. I mean, I always say, when I get to be an old guy, maybe I can't get around so well. I've got all these books that I can just sit in my favorite chair and just enjoy and relive these situations. So absolutely, books are great. Now, if I could arrange for you to have a drink with anyone in the automotive industry, living or deceased, who would that person be?
Oh, that's a good one. There's so many. It's hard to focus in on one. I would say still living, and I've met him, Clive Cussler.
Yeah. Now, tell our listeners a little bit more about Clive.
Well, I met him years ago through Bob Espenson, who also introduced me to Vera Jackson, where I worked for a while. And Clive Cussler had a wonderful collection in Colorado. And he had Voissons and many interesting cars. And he was just, at the time, just so dynamic and so wonderful, warm, compassionate, and open to so many different ideas and inspirational.
Yeah. And you mentioned a very, very unique car, Voisson, which I didn't know a lot about until they were one of the featured cars on the lawn at Pebble years ago. I couldn't believe some of those vehicles. I mean, they're cars that I'd never seen in person before, and especially the interiors, and what comes to mind are some of the fabrics that were used inside those cars. Absolutely.
Amazing. Yeah.
Just
gorgeous.
Incredible. Yes, just incredible. Wow, very nice. Well, Rhonda, how about a book? Now, we mentioned books earlier, and I know this is tough, but is there maybe one book in particular out of your library that you think our listeners should have in their library?
Well, it would be, there were a series of books written quite a while ago, and they were all written about certain marks of cars. But if you're focusing on just learning about cars, I would suggest the old cars, original books.
Very nice. I have some of those, and I remember even way back when my parents buying me some of those books. But now, they're out of print right now? Is that correct? They are, yeah. So you can find those in bookstores or, of course, eBay. If you're looking for old books, eBay is a wonderful resource. There's always somebody that might be willing to let go of a book. I know The weekend or the day that I'm doing the show is about 3 weeks back, really, from the day it airs. And the California Literature Show for Porsches was down in L.A. That was a great place to go to find books. Of course, racetracks where they have vendors. Yeah, those are the kind of great places to go and find these books that are out of print. And many of them are well cared for. They're in great condition. We even have an old bookstore here in Gig Harbor that I'll go in and kind of rummage through, and you'll find these wonderful old car books that you didn't even know existed that have some great history in them. So great idea. Well, listeners, you can find links to all these resources Rhonda shared today on her very own Cars Yeah show notes page. Just go to carsyeah.com, type in Rhonda Madden, Madden, and that page will pop right up. All right, Rhonda, we're up to the checkered flag. Now, you may have already answered this question. We'll see. I know we asked you what kind of car you think you are, but you also mentioned that Delahaye is a car that you love. This question could be a bit of a doozy, especially for a collector like you. Today, I'm going to buy you any cool collector car on the planet, but there's a couple rules to this game which are going to make things very hard for you in particular. One is you can't sell it to buy a bunch of other toys with, so those selling days are all over for you. You have to drive it. I want you to have fun in this car. No garage queens or dust collectors allowed here on Cars Yeah. And here's the catch. It's the only car you can have in your garage. It's a collector car. You can keep your daily driver. So what can I buy you today, Rhonda?
An Alfa Romeo Sprint Especial.
Back to the past a little bit here. Well, again, what is so especial about the Alfa Romeo Sprint for you?
The design. I drove one once, and I was in awe. It handled beautifully. It's pure eye candy. That's the best I can describe it.
Yeah. Well, of course, yeah, absolutely spectacular cars. And again, it's another car for you listeners to look up. In my mind, it's interesting car because it was at the end of the 50s, or, early 60s, and the car still had a lot of that space age rocket ship look to it, like you saw with American cars in the 50s. I mean, it looks like a wedge bullet almost coming through the air, but it's
Good
so
description.
different. Yeah, it's just so different and so unique. I've never had the pleasure of driving one. I've seen them before. And of course, Keith Martin, who's been a guest here on the show, friend of mine who is the publisher of Sports Car Market magazine. And a shout out again to Keith. He's been recovering from a stroke here the last 6-7 weeks. So our hearts go out to him and well wishes for a great recovery. But he, of course, is the Alfa Romeo King guy, loves these cars. Yeah, you picked a really nice car. Now,
Keith Martin I've known him for 30 years.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Yeah, very special. You know what's also cool about that car is the back end. It's
amazing.
It's almost like the front end of another car in a way. I mean, it's so unique. Now, here's what'll be the telling tale for me here, Rhonda. What color would you like that Sprint?
Red.
Red, of course.
Rosso.
There you go, CC. Very nicely done. Well, I will get to work and see what I can find. I'm going to give Keith a call, check up on him today, and say, hey, I've got a friend who needs a Sprint. Where can I find one? Because I got to park that in your garage sometime soon. I'm sure he'll just laugh and say, oh, I know where a few of those are. Rhonda, you've taken us on a wonderful ride today. I'm so happy to have had you as a guest here on Cars Yeah and call you my friend now. I've really enjoyed getting to know more about you, and you've surprised me today with things I didn't know about you, which is all part of Cars Yeah and the discovery process. I want to thank you for sharing your journey. Could you give us a little parting piece of wisdom or guidance before you rip off into the sunset in that beautiful Alfa Romeo Sprint Especial?
Enjoy every minute of life, the good sides and the bad sides. That's my motto.
There you go. No matter what the day brings you, if you woke up, it's a good day. As my dad used to say, if you're on the top side of the dirt, it's an even better day. So, and what's the best way for our listeners to learn more about you and Creative Automotive Consultants?
Well, I have a website. It probably needs a little updating, and it's www.creative-automotive.com.
There you go. I'll make sure I put a link to that. Follow along with what Rhonda's doing. She's living the dream, living a life around cars that has made her life so special. We are very special to have had you as a guest here on Cars Yeah today. And listeners, you can find links to everything that Rhonda shared on her very own Cars Yeah show notes page. Just go to carsyeah.com, type in Rhonda Madden. Hey, Rhonda, Thanks for being so generous today with your time, your expertise, and for sharing your incredible experiences with me and the listeners. Until you and I talk again, I'll see you down the road.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You take care of your cars, but who takes care of your investments? Tune-ups aren't just for engines. Updating your financial plan is important too. Your GPS may take you from A to B, but it won't help you on the road to financial freedom. For that, you need a good co-pilot and a very trusted advisor. Chris Kimball, CFP, is just the man for the job. He'll guide you down that road without driving you crazy. For over 25 years, Chris has helped people just like you and me with their financial planning and investments. With a master's degree in financial services, he is eminently qualified, and he's a car guy too. Learn more at chrisvkimball.com or call 866-ON-A-PLAN. Securities through Money Concepts Capital Corp., member FINRA SIPC. CK Financial Services is not affiliated with Money Concepts Capital Corp.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.